Good. How is everyone in the chat? Hope you're all well. The midweek breakdown is really positive. No, I'm joking. Of course it's not. It could be. Depends.
I don't know what you mean. I don't think there's anything more positive than talking about society collapsing.
No. Society's not collapsing. Where on earth did you get that idea?
I'm not sure. Not as if there's any weird goings on anywhere in the world at all. No. Everything is stable.
Everything is eminently stable. People who worry about things being unstable, I don't know where that's coming from. Everyone's just doing great. Businesses are thriving. Children are out in the fresh air, exercising. It's wonderful. Okay, we've got some people in the chat. Let's say a quick good evening to everyone. So we've got English Will, good evening. Andrew, Sir Francis, Philomena confirming YouTube is all good to go. Thank you very much, my dear. Okay, it looks like it's just us, so let's carry on. So yes, we hope you're all enjoying your evening. It's going to be a nice, relaxing chat. For some reason, Jordan keeps getting kicked out. I don't know why. It's not me, I promise. Are you back this time?
This time, yes. I can now see.
Okay, what happened?
I don't know. It's every now and then. It's certainly not every stream, but every now and then I just kind of... I get kicked out. I don't know why.
I promise it wasn't me.
No, I legitimately think it's my internet. I think it gets shocked actually having to do something.
It's the hamsters.
Well.
Feed them. Feed them more.
They've been fed once this month. What more do they? No, I really don't understand what happened. It's really weird, really annoying. Normally it's okay. Normally it's seamless. Nobody notices I've just cut off halfway through a sentence.
I was a bit worried. Anyway, who else are we saying hello to this evening? Johnny, not Powell. Oh, you're not late. We're just faffing about as we normally do. Good evening to Hasdak. I believe I saw a Dennis Menace earlier, but now I can't see it. I don't know if he's deleted.
You did indeed. He's here.
Oh, I don't know where. I can't find the comment now. Oh, there you are. Oh, a little dancing keck. Brilliant. And who else is? Old Mother Earth is here again. Good to see you. I'm afraid we can't change our schedule. This is the only time we can do it. So, yeah, that's unfortunate. Ragnar is here. Good evening. And Roan Wood, good evening. Okay, so, yeah, we've been covering the nudge unit information for some time now. And we've obviously started delivering the podcast. We're going to talk about those in a bit. But first of all, we want to talk about civilization. I don't know why that's so funny. I shouldn't have laughed. This veneer of civilization, people aren't doing so good. They just, there are a lot of problems going on. And it's very distressing to see. Of course, we know that community is the answer to everything. Or the answer to most things, let's say.
I would say the answer to most things.
Wow. I don't know. It's very concerning for me personally that we're a year into this and people are still not really understanding what's going on here. I mean, even without delving into all the sort of nitty gritty, people must surely understand that something not very good is happening right now in history. I still don't understand how. I know the media obviously only discuss the things that they want to, but there are lots of things happening that people can see with their own eyes. You know, the way people are treated when they go out, these COVID cops, COVID marshals, just all of it really. I don't know. Do you think this is willful ignorance at this point? Do you think it's easier to pretend?
I think it's just people are trying to pull the wool over their own eyes and go from there.
So they're in denial.
Pretty much. We have this conversation quite often about various family members that we have to go out
Yes.
of their way to remain ignorant, even when you put facts straight in front of them.
So it's
And
fear.
I know that everyone in chat has the same feelings. We all know somebody in their life who is this way. It doesn't matter how much information you give to them, it's just water off a duck's back. They just brush it off as if it's nothing at all. And they say, it's fine. The experts know what they're going on about.
So you think fear of, I mean, obviously, fear of the disease, that's a distraction in itself. We're so consumed with the fear of something that may or may not happen that we've kind of taken our eye off the ball, haven't we, when it comes to looking at the other things that are happening right under our noses. And I suppose it comes back to this idea of finding out everything you knew was a lie, or to find out people you trusted are lying to you. I wonder if that's the fear I'm referring to. I wonder if that's what's motivating people. That it's far easier to ignore the reality and keep some level of comfort, because it can't all be collapsing, right? The government can't be lying to us, right? Because they have all this control and power. And if they're lying to us, that means that we are truly slaves.
I like what Rowan has said, fear of argument and being right. I think there's a lot of people who know what's going on and they know what's going on and they're just afraid of it being correct. And there must be a way to lead people down the path, going from knowing something is wrong and being scared that you're right to actually understanding that you're right, understanding what reality is and going from there.
Well, yes. I mean, fear of argument is actually good. Is actually a good point that you've raised there, because I think ultimately people must know that if somebody took the time to, I don't want to use the word debate because it's not really applicable, although I suppose it's as good a word as any. If somebody really started trotting out all of the information, they already suspect that everything they know so far is untrue, or at least has been embellished, let's say. Mm-hmm. So to have someone point out this actual facts means they can no longer engage in this delusion where everything's okay and everything will be fixed and you've just got to trust the government and they'll take care of it all, right? So maybe this is why people just instantly dismiss anything you have to say that goes against the current narrative. Because I think they do suspect that something isn't quite right here. Blissful ignorance is indeed very addictive and very attractive to people. I suppose especially when you are... I don't think people are as afraid of the pandemic as they are as afraid of stepping outside, maybe, of the bubble, the safety
Absolutely.
bubble, security bubble.
Absolutely. Well, we've had this conversation a number of times. Like after doing the Tuesday podcast, we've had this conversation. The way that everything is structured to make us fear the government as opposed to the disease.
Yes.
This is why they keep fining people. If at the end of the day, if it was back in 14th century Europe, people wouldn't have had to be fined in order to stay in their bloody homes because of the plague. People would have been thinking, there's a plague about, I know what I'll do, I'll stay indoors, thanks.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this before. It's surely any community or society that has a leader, it's their job to reassure you.
Mm-hmm.
When something earth-shattering like this comes along. but they haven't done anything to reassure people. In fact, they've ramped up the fear to like DEFCON 1, which is really amazing from a psychological point of view. How on earth can that possibly benefit the smooth transition into accepting the new normal that they want everyone to accept? It's getting people to believe in absurdities.
Mm-hmm.
But why don't they do their best to reassure people? Why do they want people so afraid? Because that's what it seems like their motives are. Why do they want people so afraid? Is it so that they won't start looking into the harsh realities of lockdown? Is it so that they will accept?
I don't think it's so people won't look into stuff, because I don't think they care about that. They're doing it to separate us and to keep us apart from people who might actually go and do something. That wasn't worded properly. 1 minute. Let me reframe that answer.
Okay.
They don't want us in a position where we might actually act on our feelings and our thoughts. Nobody needs to look into lockdown to come to the conclusion that it's bad. It's common sense.
Yeah, but it's objectively bad. I mean,
Absolutely. But what they're really trying to do is trying to get you away from everybody else. As far as I can see, anyway, get you back in front of the TV, back in front of the talking heads who they put there so they can nudge you along, and away from other people who might mislead you. We've learned a heck of a lot going through this document. The next episode covers this, if I remember rightly. Or is it the episode after? I'm not sure. The norms and all of that stuff.
Yes. Yeah, we're definitely heading towards current day. And how it's just interesting that they've had their fingers in everything, really.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were talking about the wars, weren't we? And how even before the nudge unit was created, manipulation has always been used against people. The Iraq War being a good example of that. All of the wars, actually, technically. Because people have to be coerced into agreeing to war because nobody wants to. So there's a little nudge here and there, all this, stand for your country and your country needs you. All of that was all propaganda. That was all nudges. Anyway, yes,
They were
very
like
interesting subject.
they were the baby modes, as it were.
Well, they
The
were, yes.
baby modes of defaults, trying to get people to see that as the default option or the normal option.
The majority option, right?
Well, that's the norms that they speak of.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like most they used to appeal to patriotism though in the good old days, didn't they? Do it for your country, and now they use fear tactics instead, like don't kill grandma.
Out of interest, what is the latest army marketing deal?
I don't know. I don't watch the news anymore. Can anyone in the chat tell us?
Okay, clue. I'm just going to look it up. 1 second.
What's the latest beans means Heinz message? Does anyone know?
No. I said the army, not the.
Oh, sorry.
Listen to me, Joe.
Okay, look, I've explained like 1,000,000 times. What you're asking for is just impossible. There was some mention earlier as well of nuclear weapons. Apparently, we are going to increase our nuclear armaments again. Brilliant.
I would work out what the point in that is. Sorry, carry
on. So Johnny Not Powell says, between January 3rd and April 12th, 2003, 36 million people across the globe took part in almost 3,000 protests against the Iraq War.
Damn.
And yet...
What was the TV coverage of that like?
Do you know what? I vaguely remember the London protests. I don't remember any others around the
Same
globe.
here. I vaguely remember. I just remember enough to know that there was a heck of a lot of people there. And that's basically it. I don't remember much else.
I think it was about 1 million, wasn't it, in London? Or a couple of million? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 1 million. But yes, it's very interesting. Again, the media have such a part to play with
We
this
should.
nudge
Sorry,
unit. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say we've mentioned this before. I don't know if it was on recording or not, but we've mentioned that we should go back through historical things such as this and
Yes.
try and find out all the little nudges and all the little tricks that they pulled on us, trying to get us to conform and try to get us to agree to it. What would be a really, really, really interesting one to look into, actually, when they were trying to get us into Lebanon. When was that? 2011 or 2012?
Oh my God.
2013?
I'm terrible with dates. You'd be better off asking the
But
audience
not
than me.
Lebanon, sorry, Libya, rather.
Oh, well, that makes more sense. Now I've heard of that one. Libya was that pre-Gulf War? Or was
Oh,
that?
yeah, 2011, there you go. I knew it wasn't the Olympic year. I couldn't remember which side of it was.
Oh, 2011, yes, of course. How could we forget?
Oh, what a good year 2011 was.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing much happened there.
No, not at all.
Johnny
But
Not Powell says, and they still go out and protest. Do we think protests work? Do we think they actually achieve anything?
I don't know. Do you want to talk about the one that took place last week?
Sure.
Okay. How do you want to handle this with kid gloves?
Okay.
I'd just like to say to chat, Joe and I's opinion on the woman who was murdered by the policeman. Something's very odd.
Something is definitely off, which is why we haven't properly covered it yet.
No, because we're waiting to see what on earth what they do.
Because we think that... just going back to the protest real quick before we move on. Johnny Not Powell says, I've never seen so many protests in all my life over the last few years and still nothing changes. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Agree with that. I didn't mean to click that. Sorry. Peter Christo says, simple switch off TV and
The thing.
the thing goes away that I can't say. Terry Bobinson says, protests are too controlled to be effective anymore. Yes, all this kettling and, you have to get permission. Right, back to this subject.
I fully agree with what Andrew said. People would be better off building communities than protesting.
Yes. Well, that was the point I was making. I mean, protesting just alerts the government to the fact that you have an issue with something they're doing, but it ultimately will not change their minds or change their course of action. And it does expose you to potential violence to be used against you. So, yeah. Oh, that's good to hear from Albert.
I was just going to bring that to your attention.
And I live in the country. I have good news. Most people no longer wear masks. The store no longer asks customers to wear them. Families meet again, etc. I'm so very pleased to hear it.
You can definitely tell spring is coming. I saw a couple of hares out back yesterday. They weren't doing their boxing, but they were mooching around. They only pop up here during the spring. You don't see them during the summer or autumn. Certainly not in the winter.
Peter Christo says protests produce revenue. Well, of course they do, and it's clickbait for the media, isn't it? But yes, okay. Let's talk about this then, shall we? Regarding the victim and the alleged perpetrator shenanigans, I'm not sure what. Something isn't right. That's all I'm going to say on that for now. Something is not right.
It seems a little bit unlikely that a police diplomat would do such a thing. Certainly plausible, but just, bit of an odd job to be having, I suppose. And then to be caught so quickly.
A very specific type of police officer just randomly happens to do something so incredibly stupid that he gets caught for it. So we think something is off about this story. And that's why we're not covering it yet, because we're going to wait and see what happens. With regard to the protests themselves, it's interesting how the media are either pro or anti-protest, depending on who's protesting and what the reason is.
Mm-hmm.
The protest/vigil, depends on who you speak to, which of those it was either infiltrated by, was it Antifa and who was the other
It
one?
was Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and there's another group who. Extinction Rebellion. That was it.
So allegedly, these people infiltrated the protest, and as such, the police presence was necessary, and their efforts were required. But when you speak to someone else, it was a vigil, a peaceful vigil. And then you've got women complaining that where they'd gone out to hold a vigil for some woman who was kidnapped by a police officer, allegedly, they were then accosted by police officers at the vigil and taken away by police officers while they're protesting a woman being taken away by a police officer. It's almost in your face hypocrisy that you cannot speak of.
It's a little clown world.
It's
Let's be honest.
It's such an obvious laugh in our faces. It's inconceivable that anyone fell for it.
It's the sort of thing that you would write up for a film script or TV script, and you would be laughed at and told to do it again. It doesn't sound right at all. Not even remotely.
And Fat Girl says, most definitely, why would an experienced copper leave a breadcrumb trail of body parts scattered across the forest? And don't make me start on the Patsy, the actress, who had a perfect photo opportunity. Mask on, mask off, mask on, mask off.
That to me is the thing. The fact that she was an actress, okay, you know what? Actresses are typically left wing. They're allowed to go and protest.
That's fine. But come on, she took her mask off for a photograph while she was being arrested.
But no, Joe, you've missed the wood through the trees, love.
I don't think
she was laying on her stomach. The mask was on. She was on her knees. The mask was off. Little bit weird. Just a little tiny bit.
Oh, if that's the wood you're talking about, I don't want to talk about that. Now, this is interesting. Who said that? Let me go back. Michael says, Fall Guy. Now, this was something else we were discussing. Because Patsy, there's another reason why the name Patsy is used.
There's actually her name.
And the actress happened to be called Patsy. And I'm trying to think of some historical event where there was a Patsy. A male Patsy, clearly someone who identified as male. Anyway, happened in Texas, 1960s. I just can't think who that could possibly be.
Carry on, because I was saying kind of interesting.
Okay, well, anyway, the point is, what if the Patsy is the photo op for the Patsy? I mean, come on, everything that could possibly raise suspicions about any story at any time, it's all there in this one. Johnny Not Power. Oh, go on. Shall I read this? It says, I find it funny as Coof cases drop and the media have nothing to produce fear. Summit is coming and now it's man that's the threat. Don't even start me on the curfews. We're living in a simulation, lol, Sir Francis says. Go on then. I'm going to...
Thank you. You Google the name Patsy because, you know, you think you're going to come up with what you want. Turns out you do not. Instead, you come up with this woman named Patsy Palmer. I've no idea who this person is or what they've done, but...
She's an actress in EastEnders.
Okay, well, whatever. Point is, the top story as of right now, the only thing you can find on Google's front page when you put in Patsy is that this woman, Patsy Palmer, has done a Piers Morgan and stormed off Good Morning Britain.
Brilliant.
Now, 1 minute. The reason that's important...
Can I just ask a quick question before you carry on? Was she shouting, Ricky? It's her thing. It's her tagline. Ricky! She was married to someone called Ricky. and she's an East
Okay,
End.
Dot can't calm down for a moment. Let me
No,
finish.
it's the angle. It's her thing.
Okay, I don't know.
Because you
Okay, yes,
don't
she was. The
because you're
point is, the point is,
everyone in the chat
we
got that.
know. The point is, we know that the government does intend to use messengers, as they call them.
Oh
So
yes.
people like this Patsy Palmer. Isn't it kind of convenient that this woman has a pretty rare name anyway? And then there's another actress who is much, much, much more famous than her with the exact same name, who just moments after, or the next day rather, a couple of days later, does something quite remarkable and storms off of a live TV interview.
Well, is that to keep the name Patsy going in the news?
I think it's to cover it up.
You think
That's my
what?
point.
I mean, they're surprised that so many people realise that
No,
the fake Patsy was an actress.
No, it's because Patsy is the only part of her name people can remember. So when they're going to look them up, rather than coming up with that woman now, we're instead going to get Patsy Palmer and her storming off of Good Morning Britain.
Which ties in with Piers Morgan, which ties in with the royals. Yeah, they're clever little. Oh, I nearly said something bad then. John Francis says, she was 33, her boyfriend's 33. She went missing on the 3rd of the 3rd, 303 days from the end of the year, on Clapham Common. I don't know what you're trying to imply there, John Francis. You're saying there's some issue with number 33. Do you know what any of this is about, Jordan?
Not a clue.
I don't know what this 33 is. I've never seen that used before. Certainly not when it comes to COVID cases or lockdown. Tom P says, motive, he's a man, case closed.
I've just popped onto Twitter. I put in the word Patsy to see what popped up. Our good friend Femi. Does everybody remember Femi? The man.
Olawale. Yes.
Sorry?
Femi Olawale.
Exactly. Femi, the man who decided to try and get people to vote more by running shirtless to the voting centre. Whatever. Anyway, he's one of the top tweets at the moment. For people trying to discredit Patsy Stevenson, which is her name, based on what she does for a living in order to excuse the violence against her, you have the same energy as the cops who dismissed the sex worker victims of the Yorkshire Ripper. Please do find yourself a large body of water.
Wow.
Here's the man who keeps on giving.
Oh God, he honestly needs to shut the hell up. Picking Gaz says, Patsy is what they called the poor bloke who was lord for killing that MP. Yes, Patsy is the name of basically a stooge. Someone that's used. There you go, Sir Francis got it. Ricky! In my defence, Andrew, not for about, God, I don't know, 6 years. Maybe 7. So I don't even know who's in it now. I don't know if it's even worthy of a conversation. Thank you, Johnny, not Pal. It's not my proudest moment. But I did say I was an East End girl. I wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. Yeah, the actress was to cause the curfew for men. This curfew will obviously never happen. It can't happen. But it's interesting how men are suddenly the most evil of evils again. Keeping that fear going, as was rightly mentioned earlier. Patsy Lee Harvey Oswald, says Tom Peace. Yep. I wasn't going to say it, but whatever. Yes. No, I haven't, Albert. Piers Morgan shapes a discourse. It's interesting he made that that whole thing about himself. That's quite genius, actually. Barry George. Thank you, Picking Gaz. I was trying to think of his name. That is, of course, the alleged murderer of Jill Dando. Just needed to ruin his happy life for no reason whatsoever. Well, Femi, who listens to that plink, I don't think anyone actually listens to him, but he's good. He's good entertainment value. Definitely.
I just love the clip of him running along shirtless trying to get people to vote. That was the most weird, random thing I've ever seen.
I don't know. The obvious point of all of this is to just keep the fear coming thick and fast. When one appears to be coming to an end, let's rile up another group against another group. It's always about division, isn't it? Always.
Mm-hmm.
It's never any group against the government, have you noticed? It's always a group against another group. Divide and conquer. They're doing what they do best. So, yeah. I don't know. It's, oh, yes, let's mention this one from Xanth. Yes, undercover police officers are going to be in pubs now. Which is, well, considering that if this story has any truth to it, it was a police officer that was found guilty. Having undercover police officers, presumably males, hanging around women in pubs and clubs, I don't exactly understand how they've got the message so wrong. What do you think about that one, Jordan? What will they do? Escort women home?
Give them.
What will they do? Offer to escort women home to keep them safe from what? Other police officers. This whole thing is just a parody of life.
You tied this back to something kind of interesting the other day. The trusted network thing, the digital ID card thing that we covered last week.
Yes.
Last Wednesday. The trusted network, and then a couple of days later saying that there needs to be some sort of male curfew. And the only people, or the only men allowed out at that time would be trusted men, as it were.
Yes. And how would they prove that they are trusted? Because digitally, you can have whatever online, but physically, how would you prove you're trusted? Would you have to wear some kind of pin or a badge or an armband? I mean,
We tried the armband. That didn't work well. They tried the pin. That didn't work well.
I don't know. It just, how on earth could you possibly physically allude to someone's trust? What, tattoo the word trusted on their forehead? I mean, how would you know who is part of that trust network? Oh, Zant says, UK column covered immune escape today with a reference to when it's happened before, must watch. That's very interesting. If you could drop a link, please, that'd be great. If you have one.
What is immune escape?
I don't know. UK column.
Okay, let's find out what immune escape is.
UK column normally have really great articles, though. That's why it's interesting. If they're talking about it, it's usually worthy of a mention. Johnny Not Powell says, if there's a 6 p.m. curfew, who's going to lay tarmac on the M25 at 2 a.m.? Good luck, ladies. I would also go so far as to say, what about people who do shift work or work nights?
Tough cookie.
And by the way, what happens when all the men are curfewed and women have to go out 10 o'clock at night to, I don't know, buy some electric or get the shopping or go and grab a carton of milk or a loaf of bread? Or what about the women who have to work and now their boyfriends and their husbands can't escort them home from the train station? This is ridiculous. And by the way, hashtag not all men. Not all people who are predators are men, for starters, and not all men are predators. But all men are going to be tarred with this brush that they can't be trusted. But of course, as always, who can you trust? The state. The state takes care of you when your men can't do it. This is ridiculous.
No, I can't find any reference to this.
Oh, there you go. Mark brings up your Patsy Palmer story. Evening, Mark. Anyone see Bianca from EastEnders shut down the interview this morning? What was the interview about, by
Wait,
the way?
how many names does this woman have?
No, her character was called Bianca. Her name is Patsy Palmer.
No, her name is something else. It's Julie something.
No.
No,
No.
when I
The
googled it,
EastEnders actress is Patsy Palmer.
yeah, but her actual name is Julie something.
Well, because it's probably a stage name.
This is a three-named woman. This is too many names for one individual.
No, Bianca is her actual name on the show. It's her character name.
Bianca Williams?
No, it was Bianca. Oh man, it's been so long.
Who's Bianca Williams? No, it's an athlete, isn't she? Yeah, okay, I remember. Speedy.
Bianca,
Speedy.
I don't know. She was just ginger and gobby. That's all I remember about her. Sorry if anyone's got red hair, but she was.
Look, I just stand by the fact that it's very convenient that somebody with a very, very, very rare name has been arrested, and then 2 days later, somebody with a very, very, very rare stage name just so happened to decide to storm off of an interview.
What was the interview about?
Useful, you know what I'm saying?
Why did she storm off? I've had a relatively news-free day, so I know nothing about this.
I have not a clue. Row over addict caption.
Over what now?
I have absolutely no idea. Patsy Palmer does a Piers Morgan and Good Morning Britain interview over addict tag.
Oh, so they called her an addict.
Is she an addict?
I don't know.
I don't know. 1 minute. Patsy Palmer shut down an interview with Good Morning Britain after being billed as going from addict to wellness guru. Surely that's a good thing.
Why are they giving her grief over that? If she's trying to better herself, why not celebrate it?
I think that's what they were trying to do.
So if she was an addict, then that would be correct.
Yes.
And if she wasn't, then that's obviously... Maybe she just doesn't like them using addict anymore because it may affect her book sales or something. I don't know. Don't know anything about this. Zant says they're laughing at us, just making up ridiculous stuff to see how we bear it. Yes, I don't think that they think at this point that we can't see through it, so they're just mocking us. Thank you, Mark. I certainly trust you with music. Definitely.
Wait, we have the most important comment of the night coming up shortly from Fat Girth.
Johnny Not Powell says, it's an utter clown show 24/7. I agree. Good day to you, Will.
Indeed, hello, Will.
Right, let's have a look. A uniform, says Peter Christo. That might be what they have. Someone else mentioned vaccinated. Johnny Not Powell, put the bins out, girls. I know you work really hard, Mark. Thank goodness you're one of the few lucky ones who've had a job all through this. And I know you work incredibly hard, and you deserve it. Come and put some holes in the ground. Well, this is the thing. If women want to have men basically have their hands tied behind their back, they better be willing to roll up their sleeves and get dirty. Because they can't have it both ways. And when they have to do all the rubbish jobs that men usually do, you think they'll do it with a smile on their face? Of course not. They will complain and complain and complain.
Has this actually... You and I have had this conversation / argument. Have they ever actually said they want this properly, or is it just a couple of crazies on Twitter? I do know that there was the woman in the House of Lords who floated this idea, but if I remember rightly, that woman's floated this idea before.
Yeah, there was an MP calling for it, and there is Twitter support for it, but it's the crazy vocal minority on Twitter, I'm sure. However, that said, you don't really know who these people are on Twitter. They could be, I don't know, government employees, for instance. You just don't know. But while not everyone was demanding this curfew, lots and lots of stories came up about, oh, I'm a woman and I don't feel safe. And just one after the other. And of course, this is what they do. They create a panic. And then other women come forward and they say, oh, well, I don't feel safe. Well, I used to live in London. I used to live in the East End of London. And I always felt safe up until a certain time. So, Rowan Wood says, I blame men if she's going out for a loaf at 10 p.m. Right. Mark says she was going to talk about wellness, but they put addict to wellness on the bottom. It peed her off. Fair enough.
Do you know what? I went through that story. And I thought I had it on screen. My apologies. So I subjected myself to like celebrity gossip for the sake of it, apparently.
Okay, is this the comment you're referring to? That's
Yes.
her real name.
Yes,
Merkel.
that's what I said.
She's a Merkel.
I didn't see that. I just saw it was Julie something. I tuned out from then on. This woman has too many names. She has 3 names in her one name.
Johnny Dip says, I thought they said men needed to learn how to curtsy. You're telling me it was curfew? Great. I've wasted a whole week of lessons. That's $80 I'll never see again. And I was just getting good too. Wow. Take care, John Francis.
See you, man. It's probably about 40 minutes here.
4 minutes.
Poor lad, he's gone to bed. Whatever you do, don't miss Fat Girth's comment. There we go.
Never doubt Jordan. I thought he was joking about wasps and figs. Haven't eaten fig rolls since. Do you want to remind everyone what the wasps and figs connection is?
Yes, apparently. I had no knowledge of this until a friend told me. This friend is a absurd vegan person. I don't understand these meat-free people. But anyway. Apparently wasps, they fly into figs.
Right.
Or into the fig bud, and they kind of die there, and then the fig forms around them.
Oh, great.
And then I Googled this, and it is actually true. The weird thing is, I don't remember ever seeing a little like wasp body within a fig.
Well, it probably decays, although if it's like amber, would it seal it and preserve it? Has anyone had a crunchy fig roll is the question. Have you had a little bit of extra protein in your fig roll? And what happens to the stinger? That's got to hurt.
Oh, 1 minute. Will has a further update for us. It's not bad, though, because fig wasps are almost microscopic. Okay, right, 1 minute. I need to Google this. This is actually pressing.
Teeny tiny.
How do they grow in this country, then? Oh, they are minute. What the hell? I heard the word wasp, and I thought, okay, this is going to be a big wasp. This is not a big wasp at all.
All right, let's have a look.
Look how tiny that is.
Even so, it's still a wasp.
Yo, come on, that hardly can. That's not striking terror into the heart of children.
What's that thing hanging off its butt?
What do you mean? What's it hanging off its butt? It's its butt.
What's that line coming off of its butt?
Well, you know what hangs down there, isn't it?
That's longer than its whole body.
Yeah, well, you ain't seen the females, have you?
That's not poop, surely. That must be its stinger.
No, that's not what I said it was.
That's never its penis. Is that its penis?
Sorry.
I want to talk about its penis. Was that its penis?
I don't know. It's something.
It was weird.
I think it's... Look, I'm just saying, I think it's stuck on. There's another one here. That's enormous. Is that 4 times the length of his body?
That's got to be its stinger. Good job they're so tiny, because if I saw a wasp-sized one of those coming towards me, I'd be shrieking.
Will is an expert. He says he's an expert right now. Let's put it that way. There's probably an ovipositor. I have no idea what that word means.
A what now?
An ovipositor. I'm going to look it up.
Right, hurry up, because I'm getting behind on the chat.
You carry on getting in line with the chat.
Right, I'm going to carry on going through the comments. Okay, so back to the curfew. Picking Gaz says, "Rot them trains, good Karen." Oh, rot them drains, good Karen. Yes, they're going to complain for sure. Hasdak says, "Oh God!" Hasdak says, "I'm going to dress like my mum." Now, I just want to make a point that I made before. When this curfew, should it occur, does occur, what about the men who wear dresses and lipstick? Are they subject to the curfew?
They're different. They've done a reverse Elliot Page.
Oh, they're definitely different, but are they subject to the curfew?
No, because they're not men.
What are you showing me right now?
That is an ovipositor. According to Michael Pagan, that is what they use to deposit eggs. Although what that particular thing is, I don't know, because that sure as hell doesn't look like it's developing anything there. That looks like it's trying to stab you. He's an angry boy, whatever that is.
Can you grab this comment? It's a bit far back now. From Albert. It's at 10 past. So off topic, there's a book called Back to Basics by Abigail R. Gehring.
Yep, got it.
Which can be found electronically on LibGenRS. It's a useful resource for productive things. Thank you very much for that, Albert. Wonderful, thank you.
It lays it inside the fit. It's so weirdly fascinating.
Johnny Not Power says, "I'm a man and I don't feel safe around these utter loons." Don't blame you for that one. Is there an issue with DLive, Andrew? Nothing has been blocked.
Nope.
So I'm not sure what's happening there. Apologies. It's probably DLive just being DLive, unfortunately. Phyllis Bear asked a good question. Why 6 p.m. for the curfew? What about 7 or 5? Well, I guess they couldn't do 5 because they still want men to work, right? But yeah, there's no time to do anything on the way home. Like, I don't know, grab some food or do your shopping or pick up a bottle of wine or something. There's no time for that. Straight home from work. Like good little slaves. Ridiculous. Right, trying to catch up now. Peter Christo says, "More women on the streets for globalists to cherry pick." That's a concern as well, when all the men are curfewed. We talked about this. The women are going to be like, yes, I've got all this freedom. And then they're going to find out that, again, with a curfew, just like when you ban everything else, it's only the law-abiding citizens who abide by it. Do they really think all men are going to stay at home? Ridiculous. Yeah, we knew it.
I have an update on...
Go on.
Sorry, go on. No, go on.
No, that's it. I said it. We knew it was Johnny.
Oh, fair enough. I have an update on DLive. It is decided to go crazy and not show up emoticons and things like that. Like the little GIFs. Although English Will has them. This is very weird. I don't have them either.
I find it really odd. There's no rhyme or reason to it, unfortunately. And there's nothing we can do about it. But I can promise now we haven't banned anything. Unless it's, remarkably offensive. I think we've banned things by accident in the past, that's true. But we've unbanned them immediately. So
Are you trying to say that time I accidentally banned Andrew twice?
Yeah, we're sorry about that, Andrew. We really are. I don't know why I'm laughing. It's not funny.
It was funny.
So Francis says this is how they're going to nudge us into eating the bugs. Sneaky. Yes, very sneaky. I agree.
They're doing it with figs.
Johnny at Powell suggests that big long thing is his walking stick. It might be. I don't know what's hanging out of his butt, but okay.
I do find this 6 p.m. curfew thing so weird. It's also obviously they're trying to distract us with nonsense.
Yes.
While they do something else, and this is what we always say: what else are they doing? Let's take a look at that, actually. Let's take a look at legislation.gov and see what else these people are doing today or over the last few days.
And in a related note, Ragnar says they are the reason we should have more asylums. Do you remember the good old days when all the nutters were actually locked up?
Oh, yes.
And now they're all in Parliament.
Well, now you can't lock them up.
I can't put that one up on the screen, unfortunately. Did you see the transvestite joke?
I did see that. That was hilarious.
Yeah, it's probably just a little glitch. Always the way. Snufkin says, I haven't heard anything about a man curfew. I don't follow news. There is no curfew as such, just a few hysterical women calling for it. Kitty Galore says, what about men to sit at home, abiding curfew and receive state incentives while women do all the jobs? Sometimes people have to learn the hard way. I wouldn't actually have an issue with that. That's a good point by Tom Peace. What do you think, Jordan? It'd be impossible to police. Are they to assume people's gender?
There is that aspect as well.
Good point.
There's a very good aspect.
Exactly. This is the point we were making. Not everyone starts at 9 in the morning and finishes at 5. It's utter insanity. So we don't think it will go anywhere. But the fact that people are calling for it is a bit of a concern. Okay, sorry, Jordan. No more comments. I'll let you go through this now.
No, I'm just kind of going through this and seeing what's going on.
Oh, okay.
This is interesting. What is this exactly?
Well, that's true, Ragnar.
This here. Authority to carry scheme.
To carry what?
I have no idea. That's all they're referencing. It's something to do with anti-terrorism. This is unplanned, chat. I genuinely have no idea what this is. This could be something. This could be nothing. Let's find out. This is why you turn up, apparently. Present Parliament, counter-terrorism, so that's always fun.
What? To carry persons? What?
What?
The primary legislation allows the Secretary of State to make the authority to carry schemes require a carrier to seek authority from the Secretary of State to carry persons on aircraft, ships, or trains, which are arriving or expected to arrive or leaving or expected to leave the UK. What are they talking about? So
it prevents certain individuals from travelling to or from the UK when necessary. That's a... What? Why surely then would it be the authority to carry? Surely it would be the exact opposite. It would be like the authority to block. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop this into chat. If anybody wants to read through it, by all means, it's only 12 pages. That's just weird, frankly. This is what I say. Whenever something happens, they're doing something else. This weird Patsy woman being arrested, and then this other Patsy person whose name isn't actually bloody Patsy. There's stuff going on here.
I would like to see diversification of the sewers. I can't see anyone wanting that job for too long. Will says, what about non-binaries? They have to go in at 8. Aha. This is the problem, isn't it? Because anyone can identify as anything. Mm-hmm. I fear if that curfew came into force, what you would have is a bunch of men identifying as women. And because the government have created this absurdity, they'll have to abide by it, won't they? How could they not? Unless it would force them to finally accept that men are men and women are women and there's nothing in between. I bet they do, Daffyd. Which I really hate with a passion. There's a reason why these things have been segregated for pretty much everyone's lifetimes. Snufkin says, maybe they want to put curfews in our minds so lockdowns seem freer. It's a good point. Exchanging one prison cell for another.
Mm-hmm.
Very good point.
They're saying they do quite a lot.
Yes.
Oh, we're done looking. I do recommend everybody, every now and then, not all the time by any means, because it's boring as hell, pop on to legislation.org.uk and see what they're doing. Yeah, the link didn't work.
Yeah, Picking Gaz basically said change the word carrier to escort. It's a very weird phrasing as well, isn't it?
It's just odd. Nothing else, just odd. Pretty
That's
much everything
interesting. Serco prisons are now
going on at the
owned by
moment is
Bill
odd.
Gates. I didn't know Bill Gates bought out Serco. Or is it that he owns the prisons that they're using?
Let's find out.
Will says the lockdowns have changed the paradigm, so a curfew doesn't seem so crazy to us. I would say that unfortunately, when it comes to the masses, you're probably correct, because a curfew is still partial freedom, isn't it? And therefore, by most people's take, that would be an improvement on a lockdown, which is a permanent thing, and it's 24/7. Luckily, not everyone is so easily placated with a prison with fewer bars. But I imagine a lot of people would accept that as some kind of nice trade-off. So
I'll zoom out so people can see the headline. Gates Foundation Trust, which apparently is the investment arm of the foundation, which is kind of interesting, up stake in UK prison firm. This was back in 2019.
My God.
This does not seem
So they added nearly
suited to
200,000
the image.
shares. They now own 3.74 million shares. Oh, is that in total? Yeah, that's total, I think.
It's not a lot, but it's just kind of...
It's control, though, isn't it? It's influence.
I must admit, this may be ignorance. I didn't realise we had for-profit prisons in this country.
No, I was just reading that. I thought this was an American thing.
Yeah, that was a thing that we had here.
My God, so the state's even making money off of inmates.
Apparently,
Wow.
I cannot highlight this. No, okay, well, there it is. You can all read it. All of which are nearly filled to capacity. I wonder why. Whoa, 1 minute. Britain holds a bigger proportion of inmates in for-profit prisons than any except Australia.
Yeah.
That is remarkable.
The market is dominated by three companies, Serco, G4S plc and Sodexo SA, South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
In January, Serco was handed a £1.9 billion 10-year government contract to provide support services for asylum seekers. Support services. Asylum seekers, come on.
Right.
There aren't enough genuine asylum seekers to fill a single prison, let alone prisons plural.
That other company, Sodexo?
Yes.
Do you want to guess what industry they're normally in?
Go on.
Food storage.
Oh my God.
They're in the food services and facilities management business.
Yeah, I wonder how many of their factories have burnt down this year.
Not that many. I bet theirs are perfectly fine.
I bet it is. Wow. This is the problem when you start looking into things, that when you go down the rabbit hole, it just leads off into so many different directions. You could just be there forever, following the clues, following the trails. The Wuhan lab, yes, I know about Soros's connection to that and Gates's connection to that. Has anyone read recently that the government, or the Chinese government, or I can't remember who said it now, forgive me. I generally tend to glance at the news now because I know it's not there to serve us. Something about the wet markets was all a big mistake, and that it was actually potentially some kind of biological accident. So yeah, and it's linked to that lab in Wuhan, just out of interest, and that was in the mainstream media. So I hope it's safe to talk about that. YouTube. Michael says Gates will use the prison population as a mass testing centre. I'm sure there's something in their food already, or they'll get some kind of something in exchange for agreeing.
I'm genuinely quite fascinated by the fact of the largest for-profit prison population than any other country. I thought this was like an American thing.
Prisons are our Amazon.
I don't know why.
Well, they are full, aren't they? Ragnar says there are 3,500 Eastern European criminals in British prisons we are paying for. I've said this before and I'll say this again. All foreign criminals should be deported. It is not the taxpayers' responsibility of any country to pay for someone else's criminals. And that should apply to every country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't even want to pay for our own criminals, but it's something we have to do. But we should not be paying for other people's criminals. They should be deported and imprisoned in their own country and let their own people pay taxes for their keep. That's how this stuff works. I'm just catching up on the chat. So Francis says, I bet they're doing some horrific things in those secret labs. Save us. Yeah, well, this is the thing. I mean, we know that they engage in biological weapons. We know that they lie. Weapons of mass destruction, anyone. So the stuff that we're told for a reason. It's either to frighten us or to misdirect us. This is interesting. Snufkin says, I welcome bankruptcy of our country. Of the country. It's our wealth that brings people here. I would say relative safety as well, depending on where you've come from. Because all things are relative, aren't they? If you come from a lawless place, by comparison, I expect that the UK might seem quite a civilised country. It's only when you dig deeper into the local areas that you see just how bad crime is and how much crime is being covered up, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But, the UK is a business, and let's not forget that. Because it's all about the GDP. It always has been. Throughout this entire lockdown, politicians have cared more about the money rolling in than they have cared about the lives that their actions have cost or saved. Adam says they committed the crime in this country. I don't care. I genuinely don't care. Surely
the ultimate punishment is just kicking them out and never allowing them back in.
Surely it's our job as a civilized country to contact the country that they came from and say, right, this person has committed this crime. So our choices are we either imprison them here. What we prefer to do, though, is deport them and you imprison them. And the fact is, I would rather kick them out. I mean, I do appreciate kicking them out is not a permanent goal, because nobody mans the borders anymore. Just anyone can come and go as they please. And they have done during the whole year that we've been under stay-at-home orders. But I would rather have them kicked out and take the risk that they won't face punishment elsewhere. genuinely. Because when they're released, they don't get deported. They don't get deported. They get released back onto our streets. And we have enough problems to worry about without other people's criminals.
To me, it's always kind of struck me as being a bit weird. Like, why? I did reply to Timmy, by the way. I've done that as well.
Yeah.
He's deported. It's always
You
struck
see
me as a
how
bit
easy
weird.
it is to do it. It's DLive. It's the way it's set up.
It's always struck me as a bit weird imprisoning people who don't belong in your nation. Because it's always struck me as,
You're forcing them to stay.
and not just that, but it's just being right for the sake of being right. Like, you've committed a crime, it's the right thing to put you into prison. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, it is the correct thing to do. How about a slightly different tack, though, which is you deport them and don't allow them back? What difference does it make to us, the average person, if they're sitting in a prison cell or if they're back in their own country? I, as somebody who's never met that person, would rather them back in their own country. I can imagine that if the person was a murderer or something, the family member may be a little bit annoyed at that. I think at the end of the day, though, they would also rather know that that person is out of the country and isn't going to hurt anyone else, or at least not here.
I suppose it comes down to cost, doesn't it? I don't disagree with you, Adam. In an ideal world, let me just pop this up. That yes, if they did their time and then were deported, I probably wouldn't have as much of an issue of it. But that doesn't ever seem to be what happens. And at the end of the day, why should we pay for them? I do agree with you in theory that yes, of course, if they commit a really serious crime like murder, then of course they should be imprisoned and they should be punished for it. But why should we pay for them? I mean, we don't want criminals to come here and commit crimes. That's the point. They should not be here in the first place. But I do understand. I do agree with you in theory. But our prisons are full. And I don't see how filling it full of foreign prisoners is going to help us at all. And again, it really does come back to the cost to the taxpayer. The taxpayer. Will that even be a thing anymore? How many taxpayers are left after this last awful year?
Not many. They keep trying to claim that everything is fine. It really doesn't feel it.
I don't.
Oh, that I agree with Fat Girth on. We should build their country of origin for the expense. That I definitely agree with.
Well, we're supposed to do that with healthcare. We don't do that either, because apparently it's racist or xenophobic to do that. And again, I would just call that common sense. Every country should do that. No?
Oh, absolutely. Common sense. But we don't have common sense because politicians are not anything important, to be honest with you.
Well, they're not in the business of being fair, are they? And then they keep talking about...
Well, they don't really have all that much power, as we've discovered in the Mines document, where they just outright say it.
That's true. Yeah, they have the power to do the things they've been allowed to do. Adam says every one of the boat people is a criminal, but technically that's correct. When you illegally enter someone's country, you've already broken one of their most fundamental laws. I don't know. I just fundamentally think that if these people have broken the law in our country, the punishment is in itself a reward because they get to stay in our country. I'm sure that given the state of our prisons, they're still a damn sight better than what they would face if they were deported.
Mm-hmm.
Zant says deport and pay for their imprisonment at home. It'll be cheaper. I don't know. Again, the opportunity is there and probably the law is there, but there doesn't seem to be any political will to make these things happen.
because it would actually make things better. Politicians aren't in the business of making things better. They're in the business of taking money and not much else.
Yeah. Zant says, don't let them in the first place. Well, again, if you were to put that down to the public, no one would enter illegally. But the people with the power to prevent it aren't really doing much of anything, are they? They're just talking about how upset they are that, all these things are happening and that they're going to take very strong measures, but those measures never come, unfortunately. And there's the comment from Fat Girth that you mentioned, build their country of origin for the expense. Well, Daffyd, it can't, is the point.
No, there's no realistic way for them to keep printing money in the way they've done it.
You've got to remember the basics of how it works, and I'm sure everyone knows this anyway, is that basically the government borrows money from the banks on top of all the money they take in taxes. And then they use the money they collect by force in taxes to pay off the interest from the money they've borrowed from the bank. The Bank of England is as much owned by the government as the Federal Reserve is owned by the American government. These are private companies, and they charge our government's interest. And all our taxes are doing is essentially paying off the interest. How much debt are we in after the last year?
Oh, I've forgotten. It was
a lot.
I can look it up. Yeah, I can look it up. The debt clock was out of control.
Wasn't it 2 trillion? I know I said that before, and then I corrected myself, and then I may have corrected it again.
It is 2.4 trillion.
There you go. That's ridiculous.
Debt per taxpayer is basically 70 grand.
Debt per taxpayer. That's amazing. And this is what GDP is all about. For countries to be able to borrow money, they have to have credit. In order to have credit, they have to have a certain number of taxpayers. And unfortunately, it's the gift that keeps on giving, because the more they want to borrow, the more people they must have who are of workable age. This is why all the people that come into our countries are young, working age people, men. Because they have to justify what they're borrowing against the population numbers. And if all they were doing were bringing in pensioners or people of pensionable age, then that wouldn't be viable. You couldn't borrow on that basis. But you can if it's young people. And as for the obvious breakdown of communities and relations and safety and all the other problems that occur when you do this, they don't care. Because it's all about the GDP, and it always has been.
Mm-hmm.
Or, as Adam says, it's all about the city. And this is why people keep talking about the big divide between London and the rest of the country, because London is the financial centre. You could argue it's the financial centre of the world, actually, with the amount of trading that goes on there. This is all about protecting one service. So all of the things we used to produce have been ripped away, and all we do now is provide services. But services can end.
As we've seen, services have ended.
And what are we going to do when the services dry up and we're not producing anything? This is why we keep telling people to grow food and to start securing your own food supplies. And I don't just mean hoarding food. I mean making sure you've got food this summer and next summer and the summer after that and the summer after that. And look at ways of preserving meat and look at ways of canning or jarring, and making sure you never get hit by those crises again.
Has there ever been a service-based economy before us? I would imagine that you might be able to include somewhere like Liechtenstein or like Luxembourg, Panama in on that. But has there ever been a proper nation whose economy was almost entirely based on services as ours is?
I can't think.
I can't think of any others. Everyone else actually produces stuff, and we do manufacture a hell of a lot in this country. It's done down quite a lot, but we do manufacture a lot.
Yeah, but we used to manufacture a hell of a lot more.
Exactly. When you compare what we've produced now in comparison to what we produced 30, 40, 50 years ago, it's very, very little.
Plus, of course, you've got to... This is not a static figure either. When you compare what we used to produce, which was way more, for way less, or for far less numbers, now we've got larger numbers, but our production is smaller. And that is where you're going to hit shortages, and that's where scarcity is going to come into play. Because if we're producing less food, let's go with food, for a larger number of people than we were producing before for a smaller number of people, there is going to be a problem, because that is a finite amount of food for an ever-growing population. The population, if it were finite too, may have worked. But the population isn't finite, and it's growing at ridiculously inflated numbers. This is not a natural growth, it's an imported growth. And the government admit themselves, they do not know how many people are in this country. So even if we were producing all of our own food, we're still going to hit that problem, where there is more people than food available for them. And that's just one area. We've also got things like clothing and shelter and all the other shortages. We know these things exist now, and yet the borders are still open. Surely any government with any ethics and common sense would say we need to shut it all down for at least a few years to get a handle on this. I mean, we've obviously got the census coming out. That should be illuminating, shouldn't it? The government can't even make up their mind what the population number is. The number seems to differ all the time. And that's not even tacking on, the illegals that are entering the country. People are just coming and going as they please. People who have claimed asylum here, who claim they're too afraid to return home because they'll be punished for something, they still travel home every summer for holidays. It's rather amazing. Let me catch up with the chat again. I've fallen a few minutes behind. We're still looking into Bitcoin, picking gas, but noted. Tom says, are they creating an opportunity for a private police/security service? Who could provide it?
This is an interesting question, and one that I never really thought of. There's definitely something weird going on with that Patsy woman and that entire situation, all of that. There's something very odd going on there. I'm not sure whether it would be to create a private police, but it could certainly be used to reform them in some way. My theory is basically to try and make us dislike the police even more than we already do. Then there'd be a couple of massive, air quotes, attacks against the police, which shouldn't happen. Definitely disavow that before it happens. But they will then use that for the police to say, oh, look, we need to be armed. We're unsafe. They start banging on that drum. I think
the attacks don't even need to take place, do they? I mean, we know that alleged attacks have occurred before where no attack actually happened.
It did, but for all intents and purposes, just grant them that there will be some sort of attack and leave it there.
I mean, you could be right. We've discussed this, obviously, and I can't see that this could necessarily not occur. But I suppose it comes down to the same discussion we had about the army. There are going to be, or there were at least, people in the army who would never use their skills or training or weapons against their own people, which is why it's obviously incredibly convenient if you can recruit people who don't have those same feelings, give them all that training, all those weapons, who would be willing to do that job. So why not with the police as well? I mean, it's absolutely possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come to the problem, of course, where not only will the police be expecting attacks, but there could be a lot of accidents where, although an attack was not forthcoming, people start to get a bit jittery, a bit nervous. Yeah, learning skills. This is the thing. I mean, whatever happens, we need to step away from it. Of course, we do. Learning real life skills, making sure that you can provide for yourself means that you don't have to rely on the state, which means you don't even really need to communicate with the state on any level.
Just put the
That
link to the industry overviews in chat, and remarkably, it went off to both YouTube and DLive.
Wow. Spartacus says certain census data will be suppressed. I'm sure it will.
Absolutely. See, everything we talk about always comes back to the same sort of thing. Learning skills, building communities, and slowly start pulling away from the system as much as possible.
Yes.
Like, wouldn't it be amazing if everybody, maybe not everybody, it's too many people, but, if a very large portion of the country was self-employed, and then when all these businesses were shutting down, the likes of Amazon, what have you, closing stuff down, people didn't have to worry. We weren't employed in the likes of like Weatherspoons or whatever. We actually had our own businesses where we were employing ourselves. It'd be lovely.
It would. And it would be guaranteed freedom. You'd be able to work when you want, take time off when you want. You'd be able to control your own income. You would just have the choices that you just don't have now. Will says, I would support a private police force in principle, but privatisation is often used as an opportunity for fraud. I think,
I have a lot
depending
to
on the
say on
nature of
private
people,
policing.
I was just going to say, fraud is possible depending on who's running anything, to be fair. But okay, I'll let you speak first. Go on.
I'm a big fan of the idea of private policing, to be honest. The way that I've seen it kind of built up, the idea of how to do it would be that the city pays for it, and then every couple of years they go through it, people have a little election whether they want to keep the company who's doing it or not. And if they don't, out they go. Basically taking the sheriff system that they have in the US and applying it to the entire police force. I think that is a perfectly valid way to do it.
I suppose if you've
Once again, I'm all about doing away with the state.
so if you've got a private police force, as you said, and it's funded by a local community, for instance, it answers directly to the people paying its wages, right?
Yeah. Yes.
That is, you wouldn't even need to create a hierarchy, really. Just maybe some kind of a team leader, like one person to sort of liaise with, and then they could set out, like some kind of rota and set out teams and so on and so forth. But these people would be serving the people directly who pay them. And they'd be taking a wage and that's it. There'd be no political hierarchy. There'd be no press conferences and all that nonsense and promotion this and promotion that. But if these people also came from the community, they would have earned that trust and respect, wouldn't they? They would have been people who have already worked within the community, that people that you know, people that you respect and trust already. And I think if they are protecting especially their own community, they're not going to be lazy. They're not going to sneak off for a McDonald's or something when they should be working. They're going to take that responsibility very seriously. When you make everyone strangers in their jobs, like police officers are moved all over the country, they're not supporting the local community, they're not serving the local community. When you've got this EU army, I don't know if anyone remembers that, where you've got, what it started out was, it would be German soldiers on German streets and British on British and French on French and so on. But what if the German soldiers won't keep the German people in line? Well, that's fine. You just call up another army, right? And they don't have any of the same ethical problems with firing into a crowd because it's not their people. Well, this is the problem, I think, with the police. And not only have the police gone out of their way to bring in people that are disconnected, I would say, from their own countries and people, but people that hate themselves or hate their country. But they're also really, really pushing advertising for people who are even outside of society, like outside of normal society, which is rather amazing in itself. Right, okay, we're about to wrap up, so I'll bring up one last one. Here we go. From Deconstruct. The state has 3 types of job. 1 is staff who write reports, 2 is staff who read the reports, and 3 is staff who file away those reports. Yeah, there you
Pretty
go.
much.
It's all basically a scam. They keep creating departments so that they can justify spending more of our money. And it's our money. They don't have their own money. But again, while it's not a guarantee of anything, our own communities will protect us. People that we know, people that we live with, are going to protect us, as we will protect them. This is the only possible solution I can see now. And I'm not claiming it's the only one. I'm claiming it's the only one I can see. So we need to start working with people who think like we do. People who care about the same things we care about, who would protect the things that we would protect. That is the way forward for us now. It's the only way, genuinely the only way I can see. And we'll get there. Because people are starting to see reality. It's going to start hitting them harder and harder. And there's just no way for them to ignore it. Sooner or later, they're going to have to accept that what they see is actually happening and it's not some conspiracy that someone's told them about. It's actually real. But we've got to stick together. We've got to work together. And if we do, we will be okay. It won't be perfect for a while. And it's going to be hard work, but we will be okay. And our children will thank us for doing something. Even if it's just one thing. At least you can say to other people, I did something. I tried. I tried to make things better. And I did make things better. And I didn't just sit there and wait for the awful stuff to happen. So we'll get there. Just got to keep trying. We've just got to stick together and have faith in what we know we can build. We can build something much, much better than we currently have. We know this. It will take a while to gain momentum, but once it does, everyone will be doing the same. And then we will have other communities to trade with and work with and buy from. It's going to be wonderful. But we've got to stick with it. We've got to keep this in mind. Do not let this get you down. We only discuss it so that we know what's happening. We're so much better than this. We've just got to stick together and we will be absolutely fine. Anyway, I think that's a note on which to wrap up. I'm going to quickly dish out some lemons. If anyone would like some lemons, I don't know. What do you think? Is anyone bothered?
I don't know. I won't get any lemons. That's all I know. Timmy, we will not forget to unband the sticker. Don't worry about that.
It takes a while, unfortunately, Timmy, but we hopefully will have it sorted for the next show.
It takes Joe a while to find it.
That's not true.
Liar.
Anyway, here we go. Some lemons for you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Oh, thank you for that, Adam. Yes, just a quick reminder, the gardening show is fortnightly, not weekly. So the next gardening show will be next Thursday, hosted
Indeed
again
it will be.
by Jonathan and Andrew. So we will be back to podcast on Friday. We've got some really great stuff coming up. We are going to talk a bit more about how the nudge unit is working in current day. So stay tuned for that. And we'll be back with another live show on Saturday. So we hope to see you then.
Bye
Do
for
you want to say
now.
goodbye, Jordan? There you go.
I did.
You spoke over me. So it's
I did.
goodbye
You
from
spoke
me.
over me.
It's goodbye from
Shut up.
him.
Goodbye from her as well. She might not be making the next one, let me tell you.
Oh, brave words. Good night, everyone. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye for now.
Bye.